Welcome to the Community Advantage, a podcast by BuildMoat where leaders turning AI investment into real operational results. At BuildMoat, we focus on the part of AI transformation most organizations get wrong: adoption. We treat community as the missing layer between AI tools and actual behavior change, the infrastructure that makes usage visible, repeatable, and measurable. In each episode, we break down how organizations are operationalizing AI, what is delivering ROI, what is stalling, and why. We speak with operators, executives, and transformation leaders who are in the trenches, scaling AI inside complex organizations. If you are accountable for making AI pay off, this is for you. I'm your host, Ken.
And I'm Emily. It's great to be here. You know, Ken, just last week, a friend of mine who manages a team was telling me they rolled out a new AI tool, and he was so excited. A month later, he checked the usage stats, and almost no one had touched it. That story is playing out everywhere. So today, we're diving into the topic on everyone's mind: workforce AI. We're not just talking about the hype, we're getting into the nitty-gritty of what it really takes to make AI work inside a company.
Exactly. That's the perfect example of the disconnect we're seeing, because the reality is a little bit startling. An S&P Global report showed that only about 27% of enterprises using generative AI have actually achieved organization-wide adoption. And that failure has real costs. Millions spent on software licenses that sit unused, employee morale dropping from confusing rollouts, and a huge loss of competitive advantage. And even worse, a third of those projects are just stuck in pilot mode.
Stuck in pilot. Ugh, that's the graveyard of so many good ideas. So what's going wrong? Why is adoption such a massive challenge?
Well, it's this classic problem we see with every new tech, right? The internet, mobile, cloud, a new thing comes out and everyone goes, "Oh, this is amazing. Everyone's going to use it." And then what happens is companies just kind of throw it at their employees without a clear use case. It's like death by 1,000 pilots. And you have to wonder, is it the technology that's failing, or is it the strategy behind it? I suspect it's the latter. We get so enamored with the shiny new object that we forget to ask the most basic questions.
That's so true. It's the corporate equivalent of buying a fancy sports car when what you really need is a minivan to haul the kids to soccer practice. The sports car is cool, but it's not solving the actual problem.
It really is. And you know, it's not just about the money wasted on the technology itself. It's about the lost opportunity. Think of the frustration from employees who are told a new tool will make their lives easier, and then it's so poorly implemented that it just becomes another login to forget. It actually hurts morale.
That's a great point. It's not just about the big, flashy AI initiatives. It's about finding those points of friction in the day-to-day workflow and using AI to smooth them out. That's where you get real buy-in.
That's the core of it, isn't it? The "what's in it for me" question. If you can't answer that clearly and compellingly for your employees, the tool is just shelfware. It's a digital paperweight. It's not just about giving them the tools. It's about making the tools so good, so useful, that they become indispensable. We have to win the hearts and minds of the employees. You really have to build a strong adoption program around it. You have to answer the fundamental question for the employee: why should I use this? How is this going to make my day, my actual work, better?
And there's a huge trust gap there, too. We're putting these powerful tools in people's hands and just expecting them to know what to do. But they've heard the horror stories, employees accidentally dropping company IP into a public tool. So when we roll out a new internal AI, they're sitting there thinking, wait, am I really allowed to use this? What if I accidentally expose customer data or my own performance data? The uncertainty makes it easier to just not use the tool at all.
Absolutely. It's the classic last mile problem. You can have the most brilliant technology, but if you don't bridge that final gap to the end user, it's worthless. It's not just about functionality, it's about empathy. You have to understand their world, their pain points, and show them in their language how this new tool is a solution, not just another problem.
It's a vicious cycle, right? The company provides a tool but doesn't provide the training or the why. Employees get nervous or confused, so they ignore it. Then they find a consumer tool that's easy to use and solves their immediate problem, which creates a massive security risk. The company sees the low adoption of their sanctioned tool and becomes even more hesitant to invest in the next thing. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy of failure.
That's such a critical point. It's about confidence. But here's the paradox, the really funny part. While companies are struggling to get people to use their official sanctioned tools, guess what employees are doing on their own?
Oh, I know this one. They're all using ChatGPT, Claude's, all the consumer stuff.
Exactly. It's called shadow AI. The workforce is already using this technology, just not the tools the company provided and vetted. So there's this weird balancing act of giving them the right, secure tools, but also making them useful enough that they actually want to switch.
Okay, so let's make this real. We've talked about the problem, but where is this actually working? Give me a success story. We're creatures of habit. If I've been using a certain spreadsheet for 5 years, even if it's clunky and inefficient, I know exactly how it works. You're not just asking me to learn a new tool, you're asking me to break a habit and change my entire workflow. That's a big ask.
Okay, a great one is the RFP assistant. So to really get the impact, you have to picture the pain. Imagine a team of highly skilled people spending their days drowning in paperwork. A company gets about 500 RFPs, requests for a proposal, every single year. Each one is dozens, sometimes hundreds of pages long. It's incredibly time-consuming, totally manual work. They're copying and pasting, hunting for answers in old documents, trying to make sure everything is perfect. It's a recipe for burnout and human error.
500? Wow.
Yeah, but there's a ton of repetition, right? Questions like, who is your company? Or what do you guys do? So an AI assistant was built to handle those common questions. The result, it can now answer about 80% of the basic questions automatically. A process that used to take 8 to 10 days now takes 24 hours or less.
That is a massive change. A 10-day process to 1 day?
And here's the breakthrough moment. They got an RFP from a huge government agency. 4 volumes, like 80 to 100 pages of dense government speak. And the turnaround was only 10 days. Normally, they would have just said, no, passed on it. Too complex, not enough time.
Of course, you'd have to pass.
But with the RFP assistant, they plugged it in, and within 48 hours, they had 80 to 90% of it completed.
That's incredible. So it's not just saving time, it's actually creating opportunities that wouldn't have existed before.
Exactly. And the ROI goes way beyond time savings. They saw a 10 to 12% jump in their RFP acceptance rates because the responses were better, more accurate. So what started as a time saver is now actively generating new revenue. It's a flywheel. Now they're using that same workflow for marketing content, business reports, you name it.
It's a perfect example of finding that specific high-value use case. And it reminds me of another one, case study development. Think about it. You spend hours interviewing sales teams, digging through transcripts to remember the customer's original challenge. Total brain. Totally. But now you can have AI do that. If it's connected to the data, it can review all the meeting transcripts, identify the key challenges, and summarize the outcomes. It saves, not just hours, potentially days of work.
Which brings up a huge question for leadership. Do we build something custom like that RFP assistant, or do we buy an off-the-shelf tool? The whole build versus buy debate.
It's a critical decision. And honestly, there just isn't enough AI talent out there to build everything from scratch, so you have to be strategic. When I work with customers, I say, look, if you're going to build, it needs to be something that creates a real competitive differentiator, something that gives you a leg up. And you have to consider the total cost of ownership. Building isn't a one-time cost. It requires a long-term investment in people and resources to maintain, update, and secure that solution.
Right, your core IP. If you're a pharma company doing drug discovery, you're building that in-house. That's your secret sauce. But many companies are finding a middle ground, a hybrid approach. They might buy a foundational AI platform, but then build their own custom applications on top of it. This gives them the best of both worlds, the speed and reliability of an off-the-shelf tool with the customization needed to make it a true competitive advantage.
Exactly. But if you're looking at something for general employee productivity, like summarizing emails or meetings, there are amazing off the shelf tools for that. Just buy it. It's faster, cheaper, and gets you up and running quickly. The other factor is customization. If you just need minor tweaks, buy. If you need something hyper specific to your vertical, your environment, that's when you start looking at build.
And as soon as you have more than one of these tools, you run into the next big problem. We had a customer on our advisory board say, I cannot wake up in 5 years and have my IT team trying to support 50 different AI platforms. It's this massive tool sprawl.
50 platforms? I get anxiety just thinking about that.
Right? And that's where governance comes in. I know, everyone loves talking about governance boards, but it's essential. Think of the chaos without it. Multiple departments buying redundant tools, no central oversight on security or data privacy, and nobody's sure which tool is the source of truth. It's paralysis by 1,000 platforms. That's why you have to align IT, the lines of business, and the executive team. Everyone waited for IT to give their blessing, and when IT was slow, the business units just went out and got their own tools. That whole shadow AI thing again.
And suddenly you have data leakage everywhere.
Exactly. So it has to be a partnership with clear policies on deployment, security, data integration, and the mindset needs to shift. It's not about being a gatekeeper trying to stop everything. It's about being an accelerator. The new question is, how do we do this safely and quickly so we can be better?
I love that framing. Acceleration, not gatekeeping. And to manage that sprawl, that fear of 50 tools, I like to think of AI tools like employees. You're hiring them. Each one has a specific role, responsibilities, KPIs you measure it against. You know what data it needs access to.
I like that. So you might have 50 AI employees, but they each have a job description.
Precisely. It makes the complexity feel more manageable. It's less about the number of tools and more about understanding what you want each one to accomplish for you.
Which leads to a pretty wild vision of the future. I genuinely think that at some point, IT and recruiting are going to have a bag of AI agents. A manager will say, I need 5 headcount for this task. And the response will be, okay, we'll give you 2 humans and 3 AI agents. We have to consider the ethical side of this, of course, ensuring fairness, transparency, and accountability. But the potential for human AI teams to tackle complex problems is immense.
Wow. So the line of business defines the need and IT or HR fulfills it with the right agent.
Yeah, you'll literally have a recruiter for AI tools, someone who sources the right agent for a repeatable task in HR, for example. We're not fully there yet, but I think that's where we're headed.
That's a future that's coming fast. And it also brings up the people side of this, the skills, the training, the generational divides.
Totally. We just had an intern and we asked her, so how do college kids really use AI? And she gave us the whole rundown, prepping for tests, doing research, summarizing notes. The point is, you have a whole generation entering the workforce who have been using these tools for years. They're already enabled.
They expect it. They expect onboarding to be easy and information to be accessible.
Right. The challenge isn't really the younger generation. It's the aging population, the mid-level and senior employees who might be resistant to upskilling.
You know, I think we're seeing a shift there. When these tools first dropped, consumer adoption was so easy. ChatGPT is basically like a game on your phone. And in the workforce, I think there was this initial FOBO, fear of becoming obsolete.
FOBO, that's a great term.
But over the last year, that's really started to transition. Now it's FOMO, fear of missing out. People see what's possible and they want to learn these tools so they don't get left behind.
Which creates a training paradox. We see these surveys where 9 out of 10 employees say they want formal training, but 7 out of 10 admit they skip the onboarding videos. It tells you that traditional training methods aren't cutting it. People don't want to watch a generic 1-hour video. They want training that is relevant to their specific job, practical, and available right in the moment they need it.
Yes, the training videos. So what works?
What I've seen be successful is creating that don't be left behind mentality internally, but with support. Find the early adopters, the high performers who are using the tools well, promote their success, and turn them into mentors. Create practical, hands-on workshops where people can bring their own work and learn how to apply the AI. Let it grow organically, peer-to-peer. That's how you build real, lasting capability.
I think there's a missing piece in that survey, though. Of the 9 out of 10 who wanted training, I wonder how many even knew the tool existed in the first place. Awareness is such a huge barrier. I have a friend at a law firm, a total Microsoft shop, and I asked if they were using Copilot. He said, "What's Copilot?" It was deployed, available on his screen. He just didn't know it was there.
That's wild. It's just sitting there, unused.
Which is why internal champions are so critical. Because when most people have a question, what's the first thing they do? They don't go to a tool, they ping a friend. If that friend can say, "Hey, you should go ask the AI tool that question," you're halfway to solving the awareness and adoption problem right there.
It's about changing behavior. I tell my employees, if you keep asking me and I keep giving you the answer, you'll never learn to use the tool. But if I start saying no and pointing you to the better way to do it, that's what enforces the new behavior.
And it changes how we think about our own skills. That fear of being obsolete. Is it real? Are writers and researchers going to be out of jobs?
No, I think it's about taking a skill set and applying it in a different way. A researcher or a writer is by nature inquisitive and curious. Those are the exact skills that make a great prompt engineer. The mindset has to shift from, "Oh shoot, I'm at risk," to, "How does the skill set transfer to make me even more valuable in this new world?"
That is the perfect way to look at it. Okay, we've covered so much ground here. As we wrap up, what is the key takeaway? What's the final piece of advice for someone listening to this, trying to figure out their company's AI strategy?
For me, it's about focus and practicality. First, prioritize. Don't try to boil the ocean. Pick the top 3 or 5 use cases that will deliver real, measurable value. Second, get past the security and compliance hurdles early. And third, start with the boring stuff. You don't need a grand, world-changing idea. A coding assistant for your developers or a tool that automates expense reports can have a huge, immediate impact. Prove the value, then expand.
My number one piece of advice is simple. Don't wait. Everything is moving so incredibly fast. And this is not a trend that's going away. It's a fundamental shift. The longer you wait to figure out your data governance, your security policies, and your first strategic use case, the further behind you're going to be. Even if a perfect magical tool comes out a year from now, you'll still be behind because you haven't done the foundational work. So my advice is to start now. Be curious, be strategic, but most importantly, begin.
Excellent advice. Start small, but start now. That's all the time we have for today. Emily, thank you so much for the fantastic conversation.
Thank you, Ken. This was great.
That wraps today's episode of Build Mode, and a big thank you to our listeners for tuning into the Community Advantage by Build Mode. Join us next time as we continue to explore the cutting edge of business and technology.
If this conversation helped you think differently about AI adoption, share it with a colleague who is in the middle of a transformation right now. You can find more insights, research, and details on our 30-day AI adoption pilot at buildmote.co/30-day pilot. And if AI is already live in your organization and you are under pressure to prove impact, our work is designed for you.
Thanks for listening. We will see you in the next episode.